And welcome. In previous videos, where I've talked about making your electron synths more generative, we've focused on leveraging sample and hold, just going all out with the random and making the octaves shift up and down and that sort of thing. And that can be fine if that's what we're looking for. But most of the time, we want things to be a little more musical. We want a sense of repetition. We want a sense of progression. And that's not really something we can achieve with pure chaos, where every loop it's completely different. But if we want something that's evolves over time and shifts in subtle ways, that's not really something we can get on the Electron sequencer. It doesn't really have anything generative. And I know the new Digitech 2, which was announced just yesterday, that has a built-in Euclidean sequencer mode, which could be interesting to try out in some future date. But for now, we have the Digitone. And to get further along the generative path, we need to lean on other software and hardware to help us get there. And there's a lot for us to choose from. Hello, my name is Alex, and I love sequencers. So I was thinking about where to begin with all of this, and the most obvious place to start is directly with your DAW. But I'm not going to go straight there. There's a lot of other paths we can go down before we delve into that. And today we're going to look at a app called Xynthesizer. And it's available on iPhone and iPad. There may be a similar app on Android, but I'm not familiar with that platform. So shout out in the comments if you know of any similar apps. Xynthesizer is $6.99, and it's got some really nice generative and MIDI features. And it's even got a built-in synthesizer if you just want to play around with it without hooking it up to anything else. I am not sponsored by the developer of Xynthesizer. I just think it's a pretty cool app. So Xynthesizer is laid out in a grid of notes. I currently have it set to C minor pentatonic, but it has all sorts of built-in scales which we could choose from. And notes go from bottom to top. And each octave is represented as a different color. And this will become more important later on. The root note is currently set to C1, and we can go all the way up to A sharp 6. Now, horizontally, we can go up to 32 steps. On the iPhone, this is spread across 2 pages, and on the iPad, you see the entire step sequence. We currently have it set to 16 steps for a loop. This can be configured, of course. And I can tap on any of these squares to place a note in sequence. And I can set any amount of polyphony that I want. But we should keep in mind that on the Digitone, there's an 8-note limit. So whenever this is playing, if there's more than that, it'll, of course, steal voices and not play properly. But speaking of the Digitone, let's get it connected. For this initial pass, we're going to directly connect the Digitone into my iPhone via USB. So I have a USB cable out of the back of the Digitone. And since I have a newer iPhone, an iPhone 15, I can plug it directly in with this USB-C adapter. If you're using an older iPhone, you'll need some kind of Lightning to USB adapter, such as I believe the camera kit has that. But we can just plug the Digitone straight into the iPhone right here. Now on a Digitone, let's make sure it's set up properly for this setup. So we'll go into the settings, and first we'll go to the system and USB config, and we'll make sure that we're set to USB audio / MIDI. We could also go with USB MIDI. Either of these two would work. We're not going to be using audio over the iPhone. And back out, we can go to the MIDI config, and in sync, we will make sure that clock send and transport send are enabled. This will allow the Digitone to control the transport and control the sequence on here. And of course, just make sure that our ports are set up to input and output MIDI over USB. And we can make sure the channels are set to 1 through 4 as are the defaults. For this demo, we're going to be using 75 BPM. And I've already set up a couple presets on tracks 1 and 2. On track 1, we're using ePiano VGS. And on track 2, we're using Digit 1. And channel 4 has the techno kick set up. And I've adjusted these presets slightly with a bit of custom, with some adjustments to the delay and reverb. Now, over on our iPhone and on Xynthesizer, we can tap the gear icon here, and we can enter the MIDI configuration page. Now, the first thing we're going to do is disable the built-in sound engine because we're just going to rely on the Digitone. And looking further down, and you'll see that if all has gone well, the Digitone shows up under MIDI destinations and sources. For our cases, we're going to set notes out on the destinations. So Xynthesizer will send notes to the Digitone. And under sources, we'll select clock in. So this will tell Xynthesizer to receive clock from Digitone. And that's all we need to set up to get this working. Okay, so back in the main sequencer, let's tap on the up arrow and we can go to the sequence menu. These other settings are for the built-in synthesizer. So in the sequence menu, we have the keys set to C1 minor pentatonic. Like I said, there are other scales available. You can also customize them. And we have each step set to a 1/8 note. And on the screen, we also have the morph settings. And we've got this set to random right now. And this will allow the sequence to shift randomly at the end of every loop. And we have it set to a 19% chance of a change occurring. And we have these max X and max Y settings, which will determine how far a selected note can shift horizontally and vertically. We can adjust these. We can go from 0 all the way up to 16 steps. But I quite like having it on 2. Okay, so that's random. And the other choice we have is life. Gives us the option of having the sequencer play Conway's Game of Life on each loop. We'll stick to random for today, but maybe we'll look into that at a future time. So with that configured, let's pick some initial notes and see how it sounds. So I've got a few set here already. We can add a few more. Yeah, that looks good. And let's see how it sounds. You can add and remove notes as it's playing. Everything is subtly shifting around. Let's increase the chance and make it a bit more noticeable that things are happening. Like I said, it's subtle, but that's often what we want in a generative pattern. Now that's nice, but we're not hearing anything from T2 right now. We're just hearing everything playing through T1 on the Digitone. So let's fix that. As I mentioned earlier in the video, each octave is defined as a different color. So we go from this dark purple up to teal. And let's keep a note of this. Now let's go back to the MIDI settings. And since we have the synthesizer disabled, we can tap on the sound off button to get us there quickly. Now we can go into the output channel mapping menu. And here we have all the colors and we have all the octave mappings. And we can tell Xynthesizer which MIDI channel to send to each octave or other repeating interval, if that's how your scale is set up. So right now everything's set to channel 1, and I'm going to change octave 4 to channel 2. Now any of these notes will be handled by channel 2. I could set any other octaves to that channel as well, such as these, or we can go to any. We can go up to channel 16 if we wanted to. Okay, so back in the sequencer, let's make sure we got some of these 4th octave notes selected. We'll edit that a little bit. And now let's listen to how it sounds. Nice. Maybe we can add some drums to this. We've got a nice ambient generative patch going on here. And this could play over and over and evolve over time. But let's say you want to record this sequence to come up with some new ideas and have a starting point for a track, or to just record it in. Now let's quickly make sure that the pattern lengths are all correct. So we'll go into the page menu, and we'll make sure it's set to per pattern mode. We will enable all 64 steps. And since the Xynthesizer here is set to 8th notes, we're going to change the scale here down to 1/2. So which means instead of each of these steps representing a 16th, they'll now represent an 8th. And that will give us a total of 8 bars. We also need to change the pattern length from 16. I'm just going to set it to infinite in this case, because I don't really want to do all the maths to figure out how many steps we are involved. So we'll just set that there. Otherwise, it'll just loop around these first 8 steps, and we won't record everything. So with that all set up, we can go back to the main menu, and now we can hit record and play, and record in all the MIDI. So that just recorded all of T1, and it didn't record anything from what we configured to send to T2. So we can do it all the same again, but we can set it up again for T2. So once again, 64 steps, 1/2 scale, and infinite on the pattern length. And then we can record, maybe add a couple more steps in here, and record that in. Great. So now that's all of our steps recorded in. We can take a look at those there. And everything's shifting around as we would expect. And over on T1, similarly, everything is recorded in. So now we could remove our iPhone, remove the synthesizer, and we have the beginnings of an ambient patch. If you wanted to record more, of course, you could put them into different pattern banks and have a whole track that's sampled from your iPhone instead of playing it in from a keyboard. Now, so far, we've had the phone plugged directly into Digitone, and we've been listening to its outputs on my audio interface. And that's fine if you're using a DAW-less setup, for instance. But what if we had the Digitone connected to our computer and we're using Overbridge? Is there any way that we could use Xynthesizer and record its MIDI output? Now, it turns out we can, and there's a nice tech tip that I learned while researching this video. Actually, I hadn't come across this before, so I'm excited to tell you about it. And unfortunately, this is a Mac only tip. Please leave a comment if there's any kind of Windows equivalent. But we can use some of the cool built-in MIDI features that come with Mac OS to make this work. So, getting started, we can unplug the Digitone from our phone, and then we can just plug Digitone into our computer as normal. Okay, now we can grab a USB cable for our phone. Here I'm just using a USB-C cable, but if you had an older iPhone, a lightning cable would work too. And you wouldn't need any kind of adapters. So we'll plug this in to our phone. And now over on our Mac, we can launch Audio MIDI Setup. And you may be familiar with this already for configuring your audio interfaces. But with our phone plugged in, you should see on our sidebar here that it's showing up on the bottom as a special device. And if we choose that, there's no settings that we can set right now, but there is this nice message. Pressing the enable button will place the iOS device into our inter-device audio and MIDI mode. So when we enable this, this will allow our phone to show up in our DAWs and any other software as a MIDI interface, and use it in the way we were doing just now on the Digitone. So let's enable that. And our phone shows up as an audio interface. And over in our DAW, we can go into the settings. And under the MIDI settings, amongst other things, we will see iPhone shows up on input and output. So I currently have it configured similarly to how I had the Digitone set up on Xynthesizer. So iPhone is set up as a track input, so we will receive notes, and we also have it set up on output to send clock and sync. So we'll control the iPhone and Xynthesizer from Ableton here. And now if we go back to Xynthesizer's MIDI menu and we scroll down, we'll now see an option here called IDAM MIDI host. And this is your Mac communicating to the phone. So just like we did again with the Digitone, we'll set notes out, sending it to the MIDI host, and sources will clock in, receiving notes from the MIDI host. Everything else stays the same, including our channel mappings. And of course, on the Digitone, we need to go to our system settings, USB, and enable Overbridge. And back in our DAW, we can load up Overbridge, and we have it set up here. And everything will come through in Ableton. Now I have some other synthesizers set up here, but we'll just focus on Digitone for now. And I have 2 MIDI tracks enabled in Ableton. We're receiving MIDI from iPhone, and it's coming in from channel 1. If we hit setup already, and we're going to send that to Digitone on Digitone channel 1. And then I have another track that's set to receive channel 2 from iPhone, and send it to track 2 on Digitone. And that's the same configuration we had before, but now we have a little bit of extra sort of granularity on Ableton, and we can record each track as they come in. We can set that up right now. And we could record every track that's coming in and record the MIDI that way. So now if we hit play in Ableton, and Xynthesizer should start sending MIDI, and Digitone should start playing again. Let's take a listen. Oh, whoops. I forgot one thing there. Everything's playing all at once. We'll have to clear out our tracks that we pre-recorded, just so we get everything playing through Xynthesizer again. So let's try that again. So there we go. Now we have our iPhone sending MIDI data into Ableton, that's sending it into a Digitone, and it's all being controlled via Ableton, via our Mac. So yeah, I hope that was useful. I hope you enjoyed that. And we'll take a look at some other sequencers in upcoming videos. So let me know if you have any questions, any suggestions, and I will take a look at them. Yeah, thanks for watching. Do the like and subscribe and everything, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.